Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It will take a second or two before I see you joining us here on live with Mr. Scott Ritter. So yes, we are live. Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. I am very happy to connect with Scott, especially that 2 weeks ago I was saying goodbye in person to Mr. Ritter. And it was a very special trip. I want to officially one more time thank Scott for organizing that trip with Jeff. Let's not forget Jeff together. And it was really great trip. I hope Scott is not disappointed with my visit. We had great time in United States. And just before we start, guys, I want to tell you, before I left, Scott and we have signed our book together. So those of you, this is covering Ukraine, the Scott Ritter interviews through the eyes of Anya Kay. You have links already down below our live stream. However, those of you who are interested in getting the copy with both signatures, Scott's and mine, you can go directly on scottritter.com, on Scott's website, and you can purchase from there. Am I correct, Scott?
You are correct. I think we managed to sign 36 books. So they're going to go fast. So if you want them, you need to get there and get them. Because once they're gone, we don't know when Anya and I are going to get back together again and, you know, and such. So, you know, we have a small number of books.
Can I just tell you, since I came back, so 2 weeks, boy, oh boy, in 2 weeks, how much has happened? Well, I was trying to just focus on the latest, which is yesterday mainly, and I have 3 questions for you. I will start with that. However, if anyone has a question, you are welcome to ask in the super chat, and we will see if there's enough time for this. What I will be doing now, I will be quoting someone who I very much appreciate in the geopolitical scene commentary. This is someone who was my guest a while back. Her name is Tori. And I want to say what she said, because this is how I actually see it myself. But I am very happy to connect with you and discuss this meeting that President Trump had with Netanyahu yesterday. And I really want to hear your opinion. So let's start with this comment. For the first time, Israel was publicly told it won't be the authority over Gaza, and that the United States is stepping in to shape the future of the region. Israel has no, excuse my English, unilateral authority over Gaza's fate. United States has. So it looked more like it was a declaration than a negotiation. As we know, Benjamin Netanyahu, who is the Prime Minister of Israel, is politically weak. He is struggling with the domestic support, and his coalition depends on full control over Gaza. But now he has no control over Gaza. So the question here is, Scott, has Trump neutralized Netanyahu, and how do you see that area going forward, as far as, is it going to be a peaceful region? Is it going to be a green zone concept, international melting pot? Is this a way to establish peace in the Middle East?
Well, first thing I'd like to point out in that entire quote and discussion, nowhere did I hear the term Palestinians. Donald Trump doesn't get a vote here. I don't know who he thinks he is. He thinks he can come in. Gaza is not Israel's to divide up and give away. It doesn't belong to Israel. Donald Trump can't come in and say, it belongs to me now. I mean, that's what he just said. It belongs to America. On whose authority? Donald Trump's authority? He can't take it from Israel. Israel tried to take it. They got their asses handed to them by Hamas, who's still there, by the way. Tens of thousands of them, heavily armed, still with an intact tunnel system. Donald Trump wants to send American troops there to dig them out. Same thing will happen. They'll die. They won't win. Hamas will prevail. What is he proposing? He's talking about ethnically cleansing 1.8 million people. Palestinians. That's their land. That's their home. Who is he to take that away from them? Who is he to decide what beautiful life they should live. This is the most arrogant nonsense I've ever heard in my entire life. First of all, it's impossible. What if the Palestinians say no? What are you going to do then, Donnie? Send in the Marines? I mean, you're Mr. Peace, love, and I want to bring peace. What would the Palestinians say? Stick it in your ear, what you're going to say. I don't know where he gets off thinking in the arrogance of Tori, who I know you respect, but I mean, her arrogance. Where is the term Palestinian? Not once did she mention them. It's as if they don't exist, which in the minds of Donald Trump and the Israelis and many people around the world, apparently they don't. He's just casually going to move 1.8 million people out to Egypt and Jordan, and they're theoretically may create a beautiful life for them. They'll be refugees. They're not Egyptians. They're not Jordanians. They're Palestinians who live in Gaza. That's their home. They just fought and died for the right to stay there and call it their home. And Donald Trump's just going to come in and snap his fingers. Why? Because Jared Kushner has a master plan of creating some sort of paradise on the Mediterranean? How racist is that? This is going to be a white man's paradise. The white man's going to come in and build the wonderful Mar-a-Lago type resorts and golf courses, and it's going to be a place for the world to come. It's not the world's. It's Palestine's. Gaza belongs to the Palestinians. And they used to have a paradise there till Israel blew it off the face of the earth. So no, I don't buy into any of that. The Palestinians are there. It's their home. They fought for it. They died for it. And they're going to fight for it and die for it again. I mean, they may lose. That's their prerogative. But they're not going to surrender. And that's what Donald Trump is asking them to do. After 15 months of fighting the Israeli army to a standstill, defeating the Israelis, compelling the Israelis to leave Gaza, what the Palestinians are just going to go, oh, Donald Trump wants to build a golf course. We're going to leave. It's crazy. It's insane. It's stupid. Now, I don't disagree with the posturing that was taking place between Trump and Netanyahu. I do believe there's a little bit of alpha dog going on there where Trump was saying, I'm in charge, you're not in charge. And he was also telling the Israelis, you screwed this up, we're going to fix it. But his solution is absurd. His solution doesn't take into account the reality. See, he wants to pretend that Hamas doesn't exist. He wants to pretend that Hamas has no vote. Hamas just earned the right to have a vote. They kicked Israel's ass. And I have to say, they'll kick America's ass too, because we don't belong there. Oh, yeah, the Marines will go in and kill people. That's what we do. We do it better than anybody else. We'll put the Israelis to shame because we're 400 times the warriors they ever were. We can close with and destroy people like you've never seen before. Is that really what we want? Do we really want the Marines going down into the tunnels? Because we'll go down there and we'll kill everybody. That's what we do. We do it better than anybody. Is that what we want? And the answer has to be no. No. Because in the end, we lose. We can kill people. We proved that in Vietnam. Man, we stacked bodies like you never saw in Vietnam. We killed millions of them, and we only lost 58,000. I mean, the kill ratio was amazing, but we lost. In Iraq, we lost thousands. We killed hundreds of thousands. Body count all in our favor. We can kill all day long, but we lost. Afghanistan, slaughtered them. Dropped bombs at will. Went in there and shot everybody up. We proved we could kill Afghans by the hundreds of thousands, but we lost. And we'll lose in Palestine too, because it's the wrong cause. It's a cause not worthy of the sacrifice we're asking Americans to make. And the American people will lose heart. Americans don't want to fight and die in Gaza. That's for damn sure. Jews might want to. Zionists might want to. But once the bodies start coming home, the American people will say, why are we there? Because it ain't our land. And Donald Trump, no matter what he thinks of himself, doesn't have a mandate to go in and make Gaza part of America. And yet that's what he tried to do with his statement, to say Gaza is America. It's not. It's Palestine.
Thank you, Scott. And please forgive my ignorance with this next question, but I really want to ask you to explain to those of the viewers who don't know much about the geopolitics and military history. Was there any part of Israeli intelligence that was during creation of Hamas involved in that process?
No. I mean, this is where everybody gets it wrong. See, they just because Israel wanted to help Hamas exist, Hamas exists because Hamas is a legitimate extension of the political realities of the Palestinian people. The Muslim Brotherhood is the root foundation of Hamas. The Muslim Brotherhood existed well before Israel. It's not a creation of Israel. Hamas existed because they represented an evicted portion of the Palestinian political body out of Egypt into Gaza, etc. What Israel did is help fund them, funnel money to them, facilitate their creation, because what Israel needed was a political rival to Fatah, Yasser Arafat's military wing. They wanted to weaken the Palestinians by dividing them. So Israel helped facilitate the growth of Hamas. But this isn't a product of the Mossad sitting down going, let's invent something called Hamas and we'll make it up. We'll populate it. No, Hamas came into being on its own volition. Israel helped promote it, helped grow it, funnel money to it to facilitate the divide and conquer strategy of dividing the Palestinian people between two competing. And they got exactly what they wanted, a civil war. Hamas and Fatah went at it tooth and nail. The unexpected happened, though. In Gaza, Hamas won. They kicked out Fatah. And I don't think the Israelis were expecting that. And suddenly Hamas is now entrenched in Gaza, and the Israelis are like, well, what do we do now? Sometimes when you be careful what you ask for, because sometimes you get it. And that's what happened with Hamas. But I think there's the notion that Hamas is a creation of Israel. No. Hamas's creation was facilitated by Israel. But Hamas would have existed no matter whether they would have reached where they are today is different. As I said, the purpose of Hamas was to create a countervailing force to Fatah, to get the Palestinians to fight amongst each other. And the problem is Hamas was a little too successful. And when they won, when they prevailed in the parliamentary elections, the Palestinian Authority couldn't handle that. Next thing you know, there's a civil war, and Hamas is being slaughtered on the West Bank, but Hamas was throwing Fatah off rooftops in Gaza.
So, Scott, this looks like they will have to move the remaining Palestinians by force from that region. Am I correct?
Well, first of all, no one's going to move anybody. Who's going to move them? I mean, again, Trump has just got to be careful. We put these military contractors on the ground inside in Gaza right now. They're down there, facilitating the establishment of a base in the corridor. They're a bunch of young kids. They probably have seen some combat in Iraq and Afghanistan, but that's combat wearing an American uniform. That means you have close air support coming in, you have artillery backing you up, you have the intelligence. Now they're military contractors. They're nothing. They're just bodies. They're sitting there posing with their M4s, with their finger on the trigger, looking good with their beards and their masks and all that. They're dead men walking if Hamas wants to kill them. They don't stand a chance. There's not enough of them. They don't have sufficient background. And Trump's setting them up to die. Because what, are these going to be the people that are going to be pushing the Palestinians out? They'll all die. The Israelis did it with Merkava tanks and F-35s and F-22s and F-15s dropping 2,000-pound bombs. What do these guys have? Nothing. You'd have to put American troops on the ground after these guys are killed. And American troops aren't going to succeed. What are we going to do? Commit genocide? Are we going to machine gun them? Is how we're going to get them to move through threat of force? That's a good optic. That makes the world love America. It turned the world against Israel. The world turned against Israel because of the genocide they committed against the Palestinians. And if you think for a second, the world's going to say, it's okay now that they're wearing American uniforms. Go ahead and drop a couple. What, we're going to bring in a helicopter? They're bringing the Special Forces helicopter, and we'll fire some shots into the crowd just to get them moving. Hell, we're good at that. We kill a lot of villagers in Iraq and Afghanistan, blow up wedding parties. Why not just slaughter a bunch of harmless, defenseless refugees? Because under the ground are the real fighters. And there's the difference. Because what? We don't think the American-made 2,000-pound bomb dropped by the Israeli Air Force was less effective than the American-made 2,000-pound bomb dropped by the American Air Force. Do we think our targeting is that much better? That we know where things are? We don't know anything about that area. It's not our. The Israelis have been fighting in Gaza for decades. They've been preparing for this. They've been collecting intelligence. We're going to bring in American troops that have no idea what Gaza is. Most of them can't even point it out on a map. And they're going to come in there. It's going to be a desert landscape. No buildings, no streets, just blown up concrete. And they're going to walk in and go, what do you want me to do? Secure the area. And then Hamas is going to pop up out of the firing holes, start shooting them, start hitting them with RPGs, pop that down there. We're going to have to go down in the tunnels to get them. And they're going to kill us, and we're going to kill them. And the body bags are going to come home. The Palestinians don't want to move. Now, we're saying that Egypt is going to open the gates and let the Palestinians in. Now, I'm getting mixed signals out of Egypt. First, they said, hell no. Now they're saying, well, just old women and, women and children, but we can't bring in the fighters. So now we're going to, geez, where do we see this before? Separating the men from the women and children. Srebrenica, maybe, in Bosnia. What'd that lead to? The mass murder of the men. Is this really the direction we're headed? People haven't thought this thing through at all. Donald Trump hasn't thought it through at all. I mean, this turned into this was a real estate deal that Jared Kushner came up with. He's behind this whole thing. And here's the interesting thing. Not one word about Jared Kushner during the campaign. Everybody familiar with the topic knows that Jared Kushner did talk about, this is good property that could be developed. And then they never heard another word from him. Silence. Why? Because this was the plan Trump was going to spring on the whole time. He just didn't want to talk to it about anybody because he didn't want to create controversy. But now he's president. Now he's brought Netanyahu in. And he's committing us down a path that America needs to reflect on this, because this will define us for whatever's left of our pathetic existence as a nation state. This will define us. Are we a force of good, or are we a force of evil? I'd like to believe we're a force of good. I'd like to believe we have a moral compass. I'd like to believe the American people would never allow their soldiers to go in and commit ethnic cleansing on a scale this big and commit murder on a scale this big. But I could be proven wrong. And this is going to be a disaster. Because I don't see the Egyptians caving. I don't see the Jordanians. The Jordanians can't. Jordan already has 60% of its population is Palestinians. And you start injecting more, it's going to create unrest, resentment, and the king could find himself dragged by the street through the street until dead. That's what happened to the last Hashemite king in Iraq. Remember, he's a Hashemite. He's not a Jordanian. He's a Saudi. Saudi imposed on the people of Jordan by the British. The Bedouin tribes of Jordan, the Palestinians of Jordan, they're not going to put up with this. In Egypt, you think Sisi's going to last? If the Palestinians come in, you start to create, there's going to be disruption, unrest. Egypt's already a state that, they contain the population only through, this autocratic dictatorial military government. So we're going to bring down Egypt, bring down Jordan, the unintended consequences of bad policy. And this could disrupt the entire region. Who we haven't heard a word from? Erdogan, the Turks. They have a vote. I think they're shocked as anybody, going, what the hell? Trump wants to get oil down to $45 a barrel so he can put pressure on Russia to get Russia out of Ukraine. In order to do that, you have the support of the Saudis. The Saudis just told him to go pound sand on Palestine. So what, now we're going to go to war with Saudi Arabia over Palestine, expect them to do us a favor by cutting the price of oil? Trump didn't think this thing through. He didn't think this thing through at all. It's a disaster.
But isn't it that there is already a deal between Saudi Arabia and United States, and I think it's over $600 billion at this point?
What deal? The investment of Saudi Arabia into America? They haven't done it yet. Saudi Arabia can always say no. I mean, this is Trump's wet dream. I'm going to get the Saudis to invest $1 trillion into the American economy, because that's how he's going to get his growth. Artificially, investment. The Saudis are like, we could consider 600 billion. We could see doing that, but not if you're going to strong arm us on oil. Where are the Saudis going to get $600 billion to invest when their break-even point on oil is $85 a barrel. Right now, oil's at $78 a barrel, so they're already losing $7 a barrel for every barrel sold. And now you want to bring down to $45? They'll never balance their budget. Therefore, they don't have a $600 billion surplus to invest in the United States. Did Trump think that one through? And while you're strong-arming on that, you want them to change their policy statement that said they will never normalize relations with Israel until which time there's a Palestinian state whose capital is in East Jerusalem. They just reiterated that last night. To show you where the Saudis are, I forget what time it was, 2 a.m. or something, when the Saudis tweeted that out. Why? Because they had to do something because the world was going crazy about what Trump was saying with Netanyahu. Again, you're not going to strong-arm the Saudis. The last time he tried to strong-arm the Saudis on oil is when he tried to promote an oil war between Saudi Arabia and Russia. And Saudi Arabia and Russia combined to collapse the oil market. You remember that in I think 2020? Remember what the price of oil was? Negative $18. You lost money having oil. Negative $18. Normally you think, man, I'm sitting on oil, I'm getting rich. You had oil, you were losing money. Negative $18 a barrel. That's because Trump didn't have a clue how the oil market works, about energy security, about surpluses. And so, who has a clue? Russia. They've been fighting American sanctions forever. They know exactly how the system works, above ground, below ground, in the shadows, and the Russians will continue to operate. America thinks we can drop the price to $45 a barrel. Well, again, Donald Trump, go to West Texas, go to Odessa, and sit down, Midland, and say, hey, talk to the bigs, the major oil companies. They'll sit there and say, well, Donald, we're heavily invested into existing well infrastructure that we've been maintaining, and right now our break-even point's about $33 a barrel. But we invested a lot of money into that. We'd like to get that money back, so we're sort of happy with the $78 a barrel price range here. We're doing well. And you go, well, but you could go to 45 and still make money. Yeah, Donald, you're missing the big picture here, Donald, because we're only talking about existing wells. All of America's oil growth since 2020 doesn't come from the existing wells. It comes from new drilling. And the majors aren't doing the new drilling. The people doing the new drilling are the wildcatters, the independents. We're putting hundreds of millions of dollars into the ground in an investment that is predicated on there being $78 to $80 a barrel oil for the foreseeable future. Because, see, they're putting all their money in the ground. And now they put all the infrastructure. Now the oil's starting to come out. But they need that to be $78 a barrel. You drop it down to, because their break-even point is 66. You drop it down to below 66, they lose money. And I'm not talking about losing money like in the long term. The banks go, we want our investment. You don't have the investment, the banks take everything. Shut it all down. No more new oil. And when that happens, we lose 30% of our oil production capacity in 2 years. Oh, wait a minute. I thought we were energy independent. All those, Trump-loving Americans. We're energy independent. Not if we bring oil down to $45 a barrel, pal. We lose 30% of our oil production. But we could rely on, no, we just pissed the Canadians off. We can't rely on the Canadians. Maybe the Mexicans will say, oh, we just pissed them off too. Maybe the Venezuelans, oh, no, we're pissing them off too. We're pissing off the entire world. And then we're going to destroy our economy because we're stupid. For what? So Donald Trump can have Jared Kushner build a golf course in Gaza. Not very smart.
Second topic, also from yesterday. Trump signed a national security presidential memorandum to restrict Iran's ability to get a nuclear weapon. I would like to ask you, how do you see the future relationships between United States and Iran going forward?
I've been saying for some time now that Iran's strategic direction. I warned you about the dogs, so they're barking now, but I apologize.
No worries. Dogs are priority. Mucho importante, everybody.
I'll try and get the microphone directed at me so maybe you can't hear them in the background. I've said this for some time now. Iran's strategic direction is not towards confrontation with Israel. Now, I know there's a lot of hardliners in Iran, and there's a lot of anti-Israeli sentiment around the world. It is counting on Iran confronting Israel. That's not in Iran's interests. And it's not me saying this. It's the Iranian president. It's the Iranian supreme leader. They aren't looking for a fight. Now, the Iranian nuclear program has taken on a critical aspect to it because of the failure of the West to live up to its obligations under the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. It's particularly since the United States withdrew, we're not a party to it, so it doesn't matter. But then we threatened Europe with secondary sanctions should they comply with their obligations under the JCPOA to engage in trade relations. And Europe has buckled to American pressure. The Iranians have called them out on their failure to comply. And then Iran has implemented 2 paragraphs that were negotiated into the agreement by the United States so that we could snap back sanctions, you see, because we're so smart. And we said that the Iranians are going to be the ones to break this agreement. So we got to be able to snap back sanctions without penalties. And the Iranians went, okay. And our negotiators were all like, man, we're really good. John Kerry was like, I did a good job getting those snapback sanctions. Except it was the United States that withdrew and Europe that didn't comply. And so what Iran did is just back out of the agreement. Legally, they were allowed to do so. And now we have a situation where Iran has fast forwarded all the things that are supposed to be controlled on the timeline, regulated by what are called sunset clauses. Iran has just blown through those. Today they have modern centrifuges with high rates of enrichment, enriching more material than they were supposed to be able to retain. So they have the ability today to rapidly produce 3 to 5 nuclear weapons within the JCPOA was supposed to have a 1-year breakout window, meaning that 1 year after the Iranians said, we're not playing, it would take them 1 year to get enough fissile material to make one device. Today, because Iran hasn't violated the agreement, it's not Iran that's violated. Today, they can produce 3 to 5 nuclear devices in a matter of days or weeks. I know I saw in the chat they already have it. They don't. And for those of you who say you don't understand how the accounting system works under current safeguards inspections by the IAEA. Iran has not diverted sufficient material necessary to produce a fissile material. So quit saying things that aren't true. They have the ability to, if they make the political decision, to enrich sufficient uranium for 3 to 5 nuclear devices within a matter of days, at least for the initial ones, weeks for the 5. That's the reality. And Trump has said this is unacceptable. And frankly speaking, from a global perspective, Trump is 100% correct. Iran, after all, is a signatory to the, I got that. I disagree. There was an Iranian with Hezbollah, or there's a Lebanese with Hezbollah that blew up the U.S. Marine Corps barracks in Beirut, killed 241 Americans. That's a hell of a lot more than the number of Americans that died from the Liberty attack. I'm not minimizing the Liberty attack, but let's not pretend there hasn't been an element of violence between the United States and Iran. A lot of Americans have died. Qasem Soleimani was responsible for Al-Quds operations in southern Iraq. Now, we can say America shouldn't have been there as an illegal occupation, but it doesn't matter. 600 Americans died because of Al-Quds, because of Iran. Don't pretend that there isn't bad blood between America and Iran, counted in dead bodies. One of my best friends, was in Desert One, and he left 8 Americans on the ground in Desert One trying to rescue American hostages taken over by the Iranians in the seizure of the embassy. The Iranian mullahs came up and poked those dead bodies, desecrated those dead bodies with sticks and knives. Don't tell me there's not a lot of bad blood between Iran and the United States. I want peace between Iran and the United States, but let's not pretend that it's been a wonderful little rosy relationship. It's been a history of violence on both sides. So, anyways, I'm distracted with that comment. But can
I ask you here, Scott? Can I ask you here? Do you think what this way? What can prevent Iran from having nuclear weapon on its territory?
Iran, only Iran. We're at the point right now where the only control mechanism is the Iranians. They make the political decision and they will have nuclear weapons. Now, what should be happening, because this is the point I was trying to make, nobody in the world, including Iran, wants Iran to have nuclear weapons. Why did Iran join the NPT? Why did they agree to safeguards agreements? When you join the NPT, you agree to safeguards agreements. It allows you to have enrichment capabilities. It allows you to do certain things related to peaceful nuclear programs, but you're not allowed to have nuclear weapons. Iran has said we, by law, can't have nuclear weapons. I want to remind everybody out there that Iran has committed by law, by treaty, to not having nuclear weapons. So if there is an Iranian nuclear weapons program, it's in violation of international law, a law that Iran willingly signed into. So let's just keep things in perspective. Russia just signed a strategic agreement with Iran that it has a military aspect to it. The Russians don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. That's why Russia is a part of the JCPOA. The Chinese have a strategic relationship with the Iranians. They don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Nobody wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon. And should Iran decide to have a nuclear weapon, they will immediately become international pariahs. Immediately. And the Iranians know this. And so this is why I believe that, and Trump has hinted, Trump has a tendency to stick out his chest and say things while he's working for a different solution. He did that with the North Koreans, and I think he's doing that with Iran. He said some interesting things yesterday. Somebody asked him about a plan to bomb Iran with the Israelis. He said, "What the hell are you talking about? You don't even know what you're talking about," which is true because they don't. And then the other thing he said is, "I'm not looking for a war with Iran right now. What I'm looking for is to allow Iran to trade and to get back into the world. But in order to do that, there can't be a nuclear weapons program." So I think, and this is where a lot of Iranians get mad at me, but I understand where you're coming from. I understand your sentiment, but I think Iran's going to give up its nuclear program, at least key aspects of its nuclear program, in exchange for peace. And people say, well, how could Iran ever trust the United States? That's not your damn business unless you're an Iranian, okay? And if you're an Iranian, you have to trust your government to do its bidding. I will tell you this, that the Iranian government, in planning for the JCPOA, knew the United States was going to cheat. So it didn't come to as a surprise. The supreme leader, I remember the directions he gave the negotiators, he gave the parliament and everybody. He said, prepare, we're going to go forward with this, but prepare for when the Americans cheat. Prepare for what we're going to do at that time. So they knew the Americans were going to cheat. But the cheater was Barack Obama. It was Barack Obama who negotiated the JCPOA in bad faith. We know this because in April of 2015, 3 months before the JCPOA was signed, he gave an interview to NPR where he said, yeah, the sunset clauses, once we get there, if Iran doesn't change its behavior, then we're going to take another look at this and maybe we're going to pull out. What do you mean change its behavior? Because Iran wasn't required to change its behavior, change anything by the JCPOA. Iran complied with every aspect of the JCPOA. Barack Obama was a liar because the American position was predicated on the lie that we could allow Iran to live normally in the world. We've had a regime change policy regarding Iran ever since those students went over the wall in the embassy in 1979. And that's been our policy, to change the regime. That's why this is why the CIA has an Iran Mission Center. Now, I think they may have closed it. But the Iran Mission Center was focused on regime change. In 2023, there was a regime change war being fought by the CIA and everybody else against the Iranian government in September. Remember that. When all the violence took place in the streets, that was a concerted effort led by the CIA to overthrow the Iranian government. Now, what Trump is saying is he's willing to break with that past. So now you're an Iranian. Ask yourself, what are you going to do? I mean, you can puff out your chest all you want, guys. Really. Yeah. I respect the fact that you can say, we're going to have a nuclear weapon. We'll blow you off the earth. I'm not proud of that. People always hear me say, they go, oh my God, you're such a warmongering American. I'm just stating the fact, guys. We will blow Iran off the face of the earth. There will be nothing left of Iran. Nothing. Is that really the direction Iran wants to go? To play nuclear war with the United States? I mean, it has to be no. The Iranians aren't suicidal. And right now they're at a point where it makes no sense to have a nuclear weapon because it's not about balancing off against Israel anymore. Donald Trump is stepping in a way the United States has never stepped in before, saying, we insist. It's not on behalf of Israel that you can't have it. We insist. I insist. And he's going to be president for the next 4 years. So I think the Iranians are looking at that saying, okay, but he's opened the door. There's a negotiation path here. And I think the Iranians are going to take it because they don't want a nuclear weapon. I just want to remind people of that. All the people out there thumping their chest saying, Iran's got to get a nuclear weapon to do this, that, and the other thing. No, they don't. First of all, respect Iran for a moment, please. Respect the fact that the Iranians have made a political decision that they aren't going to have a nuclear weapon, that they don't want to have a nuclear weapon. So all you warmongers out there who want Iran to have a nuclear weapon so they could blow Israel off the face of the earth, it isn't going to happen. Iran doesn't exist to solve the Arab problem of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That's not Iran's purpose in life. They're there to help the Palestinians, but Iran's not going to commit national suicide to destroy Israel. That's not Iran's number one reason to exist. Iran has joined BRICS. Iran is looking towards economic development. Iran is looking to a brave new world where relations between nations are defined by economic terms, not military terms. And Donald Trump, I think, is going to offer Iran a pathway there. Whether it works or not, I don't know. But there's a lot of talk right now, irresponsible talk, that Iran is going to build nukes, that the United States is going to join with Israel to attack Iran. That's not the direction that either nation wants to go. And I think if we give each nation free rein, you'll see that they'll pick a path towards peace, not war.
All right, my last question. We have to go to Ukraine topic. This will be from Russia News Channel that said that Saudi Arabia and quoting Reuters from 2 days ago, Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates have been seen as possible venues for Trump-Putin summit. I remember when I sat down with you in New York and we recorded our video, and I actually asked you about that meeting, and you were actually talking about the possibility of where they're gonna meet. Kremlin does not officially comment on this, but according to the agency, this is from the Russian news channel, says, as they call it, Russian propaganda channel, that's how they call it. Well, what's new? The high-rank officials secretly flown to Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia. So apparently, Scott, and I really want to ask you why United States is advising Zelensky to hold elections this year despite of the martial law?
I think the United States understands that there can be no peace agreement with Russia with Zelensky as the president. Russia has said that they will never enter an agreement that's signed by Zelensky. And that's an absolute. First of all, Russia can't. I keep reminding people that Russia is a nation of laws. Whether you agree with the laws or not, it doesn't matter. The law is the law. There are ways that things have to be done, and contracts, everything have to be respected. From the Russian perspective, Zelensky is not the legitimate leader of Ukraine. The Russians have said constitution, and the Russians are 100% correct on this. The legitimate leader of Ukraine is the head of the Rada, Speaker of the Rada, the parliament. I said, we'll deal with that person. That person can sign an agreement, not Zelensky. But now, we've called Zelensky, we in the West have created this new Churchillian type character who, is the, God apparently. And how do you flush God down the toilet? It's tough. And that's where Zelensky belongs, is to be flushed down the toilet of life, of history. So I think right now we're talking about elections so that Zelensky can be defeated and a sense of legitimacy can be imparted to whoever follows Zelensky, so that we can get to this agreement. I don't think Zelensky's going to play that game, and increasingly, I think we're going to be looking at alternatives to the removal of Zelensky that may include violence, may include exile, but it won't have him remaining as the president of Ukraine. He is the problem right now. Everybody recognizes that. But the other thing, too, is even with changed leadership, the Trump administration has such artificial expectations that aren't going to be met. Russia's not going to meet any of the terms that are being set forth by Keith Kellogg. They can go meet in Saudi Arabia and, in Abu Dhabi all they want. They can sit there and have, great Arabian coffee and, nice gold-plated toilets and whatever they want over there. But at the end of the day, the Russians aren't going to go, yeah, you're right. We're just going to allow European troops in there. There's going to be a frozen line. We're going to allow the banderas to continue to exist. Russia's not going to allow any of that. And until the West wakes up that the war only ends when Russia wants it to end. Because the other thing that isn't going to happen is there's not going to be a ceasefire so that the negotiations take place, in a frozen conflict, which is what the Americans want. The Russians say, we'll talk to you, but we're going to keep advancing. It'll be one of those negotiations, where the Russians have all the advantage, because every day we go, we'll get back to you tomorrow. If I were the Russians, I'd come in and show the map. Hey, just so you guys know, today we took this village, we've surrounded this city, and we're advancing here. Okay, let's keep talking. No, you guys still want to pretend that you're in charge? No, we'll talk again tomorrow. Matt, we went further this way. I think we killed an additional 5,000 Ukrainians today. Okay, we're ready for the next day of negotiations. Because that's how it'll be until the West goes, well, how do we make it stop? Give us what we want. Sign the document we gave you. Total surrender on the part of Ukraine. Total capitulation by the West. You get nothing. But what about the precious minerals under the soil of Ukraine? Oh, you don't get those either. You don't get anything. You get nothing. You get bad investments. You get a loss. That's it. There's nothing good going to come out of this except that the nightmare ends. And then you can focus on fixing NATO, fixing Europe, whatever you think you can fix. But Ukraine's our business. We fix Ukraine. You got no say in this whatsoever. See, there's the difference between Ukraine and Gaza, because the conflict in Ukraine has an advocate that can stand up to Donald Trump, named Vladimir Putin. Where's the advocate for the Palestinians who's standing up and speaking out for them? So far, I've heard silence.
If someone asks in the live chat a question, who, in your opinion, should rebuild Gaza? But I want to ask you this one here, Scott, if you can take just this one from Sparky. Will Russia now locate a naval base on the Strait of Hormuz as a result of the recent deal with Iran? It would help secure easy access to the Indian Ocean and help BRICS.
Why do you need a Russian base in the Strait of Hormuz? I don't understand. I don't understand what purpose that has. Again, you're thinking militarily. The Strait of Hormuz is best governed by, peaceful relations between Iran and its regional neighbors, including Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. And if you have that, then the flow of oil will transit no problem. Why does Russia need to now further extend itself to do something that's very un-Russian? The Russians don't go around building military bases around the world. That's what we do. The Russian military operation in Syria was an anomaly brought on by a unique set of circumstances that led to an invitation by Bashar al-Assad. Russia is operating in Africa with the Africa Corps, but it's done again at the invitation of nations. But Russia doesn't go around and just build bases to project power into a region. And I don't think Russia's going to build a base in the Strait of Hormuz. It makes no sense, because that implies that there's going to be a military solution to that conflict. And a Russian military base in the Strait of Hormuz only puts Russia more at risk, because that base will just be destroyed in day one of the war that doesn't need to be fought. So no, I don't think Russia's going to build a military base in the Strait of Hormuz.
Thank you. And my last question, that is not on the script, on the list. When will we know, Scott, about Robert Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard becoming part of Trump's administration? When the results, and actually Kash Patel as well. Do you know when they're going to be announced?
I don't know when the vote is going to be. Now there might be some pushback from the Democrats who may boycott a vote because of what Trump is doing with USAID and all that. They've cleared committee, both of them, and I believe if they did come up to a full vote on the floor, that both of them would get the votes to be in their position. But it's just a matter of how to schedule that vote. And I think right now the Democrats are going to start playing games because of their opposition to what they call the coup that's taking place by Elon Musk in terms of seizing servers related to Treasury deposits and Treasury payments. So we'll see. But it should happen very soon. I mean, normally the president is given the courtesy once a nominee clears committee that the vote takes place in very rapid order on the floor. And so theoretically, it should happen this week. By the weekend, we should have a Secretary of Health and Human Services named Robert F. Kennedy, and we should have a Director of National Intelligence named Tulsi Gabbard. Kash Patel hasn't yet cleared committee vote. I believe he will. And then we would have an FBI director named Kash Patel. But as long as the Democrats are going to play games, there's no. But then what happens is Trump will go to recess appointments, and these people have even more legitimacy now because they'll have cleared committee. But it's the Democrats playing games, and so Trump will just say, "Screw you! I'm doing a recess appointment," and then he'll do another recess appointment, and another, and another. I mean, So I think these three people are going to be in the positions that they want. Seymour Hersh. If you haven't subscribed to Seymour Hersh's Substack, he writes a lot of really good pieces, but he's written a couple recently that are mandatory reading to have fundamental understanding of issues. One I've referred to often is what's really going on in Israel and the legal fight against Netanyahu and Netanyahu's legal problems by lying to the Israeli people about the hostage situation. It's a huge nightmare for Netanyahu that we in the West are ignoring, but he has been brought to court and he could go to jail for a very long time for breaking the law. And we're not talking about corruption. We're talking about what he did as prime minister. It's a huge problem. Seymour Hersh broke that story wide open. But Seymour also just wrote a recent piece where he talks about the reality of executive power, and especially when it comes to emergency powers of the President of the United States. Emergency, I'm sorry, Scott is a Trump apologist. Ask him what he thinks about the Gaza statements. Did this guy even watch your show? I mean, did he just jump in at the last second and throw a comment out there? Maybe you want to go back and watch the show.
Don't look at the chat. Can you please look at Maverick or at the screen?
Yeah,
straight ahead. Thank you so much.
But I'm like, come on, man, we already talked about this. But he wrote an article about executive powers and especially emergency powers. And Congress has abdicated its role as a separate but equal branch of government. They did that with the War Powers Act, and they've done this over and over again, passing laws that expand upon constitutional prerogatives regarding emergency powers, defining it. And at this point in time, Trump can, through executive order, declare declare national emergencies, some of which don't have to be declared to the American people, some of which don't have to be declared to the Congress of the United States. He can have secret emergencies where he secretly can, Seymour Hersh blew this wide open. It's an eye-opening article. Read it and understand where we are in America today, because people can sit there and condemn Donald Trump all they want, and I'll be very critical of Donald Trump on occasion. But when people start saying we have a constitutional crisis, the constitutional crisis was when Congress abdicated its responsibilities to a unitary executive. The constitutional crisis is where Congress allowed laws to be written that give the president this order. Now Congress said, but we only wanted to do it in a state of a real emergency. Well, then you should have done a better job of defining what a real emergency is instead of giving the president the ability to make that definition for you. We're screwed as far as when it comes down to the Constitution. There's a couple things also. The president can break the law any way he wants to now, because the Supreme Court has come out and said you can't prosecute the president for any crime committed in the conduct of his official duties. So people are saying he can't allow Elon Musk to go and do this and that. Yes, he can. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. You can impeach him, but not with a Republican-controlled Congress. You can't. So the Democrats are totally out of the loop. They're powerless. And that's where we stand today. We have a dictator who knows he's a dictator. And he's going to govern as a dictator for at least the next 2 years.
I don't know what else to say. We'll just leave it here. I think next time we connect, the world will be again a different place, Scott. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I can hear your, I don't know if it's frustration, disappointment, anger, but in a way you were expecting certain things, as I'm aware. I don't know if maybe this is too, isn't it too soon to judge? Isn't it too soon to judge? Is it too soon or is it not too soon?
Is it too soon to judge on Gaza? An immoral statement.
On Gaza. No, on other things than Gaza.
Look, on the domestic front, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. I want a revolution. I mean, I'm somebody who said this system that we have, and it's being exposed, the corruption of Washington, D.C. is being exposed. Hundreds of billions of dollars. First of all, they don't know where it goes. When you're told that in last year's budget, $261 billion, we just don't know where it went. How? That means there's corruption. That means it's going to places that nobody wants to report. It's unreported expenditures, lost money, whatever you want to call it. It's the payoff. It's how Washington, D.C. pays people off. And they do it. Now we're finding out USAID. Every senator, every congressman is out there screaming, you can't do this. Investigate them. Investigate their role in committees and investigate the conversations they have with USAID-sponsored NGOs to define budget items. Who gets that money? When we give the Norwegian Refugee Council $154 million last year to hand out in miscellaneous cash payments. That's bribes, guys. That's called a bribe. Okay, it's not called aid. It's called a bribe. Here's $154 million. And you know what it tells you? That the Norwegian Refugee Council is controlled by the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States of America, because that's how we get the money in for people to do. We just filter it through different laundering mechanisms. And the USAID was a giant laundering mechanism that fed it back. People keep saying, Scott, but I keep hearing that, Congress is corrupt, but where's the quid pro quo? I mean, okay, so they donate the money, but where's their USAID is the quid pro quo, because the money goes to NGO. Every congressman sits the Helsinki Commission, bunch of idiot congressmen to get together and think that they're gods in the world. They all control the National Endowment for Democracy expenditures, then break it down. And that goes out to their buddy, who then sits on an NGO, but they get $400,000 to do something, but then you don't see how that $400,000 is spent. 80% of it goes to their salaries. So basically, these fat cats get appointed to be this NGO by this congressman, and there's the payback. Right there is the payback. An $800,000 a year sinecure to sit behind a desk and pretend that you're providing aid to somebody, when 20% of it just goes to pay off the other people and nothing gets to the people in need. And that's the scam being run by USAID, by the Department of Education, by everybody. When you find out how this system works, and that's what Elon Musk is doing right now, is finding out how the system works. It is one of the most corrupt systems in the world, and it has to come to an end. Otherwise, we'll never have the government we want. We have to take the money out of the government, the corruption out of the government. This is the revolution we want. Did you hear that the CIA, and I said the entire CIA's got to go. Every one of them is corrupt. Every single one of them is corrupted by the thought process, the lack of the constitutionality of what they do. CIA just said, you all can, we'll buy you out. Every one of you. All of our employees can walk 8-month severance package. How about right now, Trump is firing every FBI, or bringing under review every FBI agent involved in the January 6th. Turns out that, 5,000 to 6,000 of the 13,000 agents were involved. So right off the bat, we're talking about a near 50% cut in FBI agents, which is perfect. I think you need to go further. This entire FBI agents in Albany, Every one of them that came into my house have to go because they knew what they did was unconstitutional. The assistant U.S. District Attorney for Northern District of New York got to go, got to be fired because they
have to return our books. By the way, they stole our books.
They stole our books. They stole my documents. They stole my computers. That all has to be returned. But they did wrong, and there must be accounting. See, the way it works in the past is that they pretend that they're or they can leave an investigation open forever, and you'll never get it back. That's what they would do under normal circumstances. But now that we have a different approach in Washington, D.C., heads are going to roll. I will get my stuff back, and people will be fired because that's the way the system's got to work. I'm in love with this revolution. I think it's great. Now, on the international stage, let's just remember this. We live in a world that is defined in large part by relationships that date back to the end of the Second World War. We talk about the rules-based international order all the time. Joe Biden made the continuation of the rules-based international order the number one national security objective of the United States, recognizing that the United States, in order to be the global hegemon, needs the system that it built. But the system is collapsing, and everybody understands it's collapsing. And so what's happened is what was the status quo is changing. And as the United States diminishes in power with administrations like the Biden administration that, just weak people, indecisive, weak people, diminishes, nobody's filling the vacuum. BRICS isn't ready to fill the vacuum. BRICS is a developing, emerging organization, but they don't have a military mandate. They don't have a global mandate. They haven't really figured out who they are and what they're going to do yet. They're still in that growth process. So there's this vacuum that exists that people are just letting it. Europe can't stand up into it because Europe belongs to us. Who can fill that vacuum? So here comes Donald Trump, and he goes, I'll fill that vacuum. And he's doing it very aggressively. And there's nobody to push back. There's nobody to push back. And this is the reality that we exist in today because of the inadequacies of the global system. There's a power vacuum that this power mad person is going to fill. And Russia and China, they're not positioned to challenge the United States in Gaza because Russia and China aren't global actors in that sphere. Russia will push back in its near abroad. They'll push back in the area in the Arctic. They'll push back in Ukraine. They'll push back in the Pacific near Japan. But Russia's not going to push back in Gaza because that's not Russia's business. Russia isn't going to push back in Panama. China's not going to put. Trump just has got Panama to cancel the Hong Kong management contracts for the Panama Canal. What can China do? Nothing. Because there's a power vacuum, and Trump is rushing in to fill it. I don't know if this is going to be good in the long term or whatever, but understand this, that the next 4 years are going to be defined by a man filling a power vacuum and asserting American power prerogatives in a way that no president has ever asserted them in recent history. And the world is powerless in many cases to resist. What is Europe going to do if Trump decides to take Greenland? Nothing. They can do nothing because they are nothing. That doesn't mean I want him to take Greenland. I'm just saying that if Trump decides to make Greenland America, he's going to do it. And who's going to stop Trump from committing suicide in Gaza? No one. No one can stop him from doing that. There's a power vacuum. And so while I'm thrilled at Trump coming in and creating the revolution at home, understand that Trump is a two-edged sword. That same arrogance, that same aggressiveness that he's doing in destroying the establishment here, he's thrusting into the global environment. And that's not so good. So, you get what you paid for. And we got a very aggressive man who's trying to change everything. And, we're going to have an interesting ride.
I appreciate you coming on today very, very much. And your insights, Scott, as always. I just want to say before we disconnect, this is not a news for you. You know this, more than I know. US aid was also supporting many organizations here in Poland. So they are not happy also. And I'm happy that they are not happy.
What I like is the independent media. of Poland, of Europe, of Ukraine, the independent media, those strong independent voices that are out there challenging Russian tools like you and me, on our, because we obviously are bought and paid for by somebody. We're not. If you saw how Anya and I work, you'll realize that we're working on a shoestring budget that exists only because of the support of the audience. Today, all that Ukrainian independent media, now they don't have any money. They're collapsing. They're dissolving. There's not going to be anything there. Same thing in Poland. Same thing in Georgia. Same thing everywhere around. You're going to find that what we were calling independent media, and whose mouthpiece, because we get picked up by the New York Times, get picked up by the Washington Post, and they'd say, well, the Kiev Independent, a rare voice of independent media coming from Ukraine with deep insights. Well, they were just a U.S. propaganda tool paid for by USAID to carry out disinformation. So I'm sort of happy about this. I'm thrilled. Look, I've always been against USAID. I've known who they are from the get-go. I've been writing about this for some time now, so I'm just tickled pink. I think this is great, and I don't shed any tears. I'm sorry for the employees, some of the employees, but for the most part, the employees knew exactly what they were doing. And if you knew what you were doing, then you knew what you're doing is wrong. And I mean, just to show you how petty I am, because I can be very petty. My daughter went to Georgetown University. She got a master's degree there in the Foreign Service Institute. And her classmates, she specialized in Southern Caucasus region. And her classmates, many of them, came from National Endowment for Democracy or the Republican, spinoff or the Democratic spinoff, and they were working in Georgia. And my daughter had been in the Peace Corps in Georgia, spent 2.5 years in Georgia, so she had her Peace Corps experience. But my daughter was very simple. These people are walking around going, well, that's not the way it's going to be. Georgia, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, we're gonna do this and that. And she and I had a conversation. I said, mark my words, those people are going to be unemployed very soon because they're playing a dangerous game. The Georgian people don't want that to happen. They're going to kick them out. Because she was frustrated because she felt like she was isolated, she wasn't in on the in crowd. I said, you don't want to be in that crowd. Now every single one of them doesn't have a job. I'm happy. I'm thrilled because they treated my daughter like shit. Because I took her to Russia, they condemned her for going to Russia for how dare you learn about Russia. She met with Ramzan Kadyrov, not just to have a lunch. She asked questions about his opinion on the Caucasus conflict resolution, stability, what his opinion of Georgia was. Kind of questions that any academic would want to know. Ramzan Kadyrov is a major leader of the region. What's his mind? She asked legitimate academic questions. When she got back, people told her to commit suicide. People told the university to fire. Parents were calling in saying this. So all you haters out there, stick it in your ear. And if you're a parent of someone who tried to get my daughter to be kicked out, and your son and daughter work for USAID, payback's a son of a bitch. But I have no sympathy for people. I know this is very petty, and I shouldn't be that way. But you come after my daughter, and karma will get you. So.
I will say something bad, but I think it's very appropriate in this context right now. Karma is a bitch.
It is.
Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. We leave it here. Scott, we appreciate you. And be safe. I think your passport is coming back to your house very soon with all the belongings that has been taken away.
No, it needs to come back, and it will come back. It's just there's a process. Remember, it was taken, just so people understand, it was taken by the Biden administration for political purposes, and the purpose was to deny me the ability to travel. And the Biden administration is no more. And had Trump not gone after the establishment, then the establishment would have kept those policies in place. Because that's the way the deep state works. But Trump is attacking the deep state. So there's an opportunity now to right the wrongs. And one of the wrongs that needs to be righted is my passport needs to be returned.
State Department, right? So this is Mark Rubio category now to give it back to you?
Yeah, it'll come down to the State Department. It'll come down to the Department of Justice, and it'll come down to the FBI.
Here we go. Scott, thank you so much. And everyone for watching. Make sure to scroll down to scottritter.com. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Hit the like free of charge. And we see you next time. And take a deep breath because there's more coming for sure.
Yeah.